Hi there, Simon Currigan here from Beacon School Support, and welcome to this webinar about really how to get the most out of Behaviour 360 and make sure it has an impact in your school. This webinar is probably going to take about 20-25 minutes, maybe half an hour at the longest. Thank you for joining me today. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, or at the end of the live webinar, pardon me, what I'll do is I'll stay on the line. So if you do want to ask me any questions in person, that's absolutely fine. And I obviously should have taken some Benelin before I started. So, okay. So what we're going to be thinking about today is how do we look at the needs and challenges that your specific school is facing right now with your demographic, your students, your families, the knowledge and experience of your teaching staff, and then how do we use Behaviour 360 to get your stakeholders to where you want them to be. I did think about calling this webinar "Don't Just Give Your Teaching Staff the Login," because that is going to be the way that you get the least impact from Behaviour 360, at least in the early days. What we need to make sure that your investment in training has had an impact that's measurable and that you can see in classrooms and corridors and out on your playgrounds is we need an implementation plan. We need something systematic where we've thought exactly about what are the issues we're seeing right now and how we're going to tackle them through training and support for our staff. And I'm going to take you through a process called the LEAD framework. For doing that, I'm going to give you lots of downloads today. If you're with me live, what I'll do is I'll share them as we go. If you're watching this on the recording, you'll find the downloads dotted around the video so you can get them too. So we're going to use something called the LEAD framework to help us work out what those gaps are, and then how we implement the training in an effective way so that we deliver results. And we're also going to look at putting something together, which I call a success path document, which is going to be exactly how we're going to use each piece of training and where. I'm going to show you a quick way of finding out which resources are most applicable to you. So I'm going to show you two quick ways, actually, of finding out which ways are most applicable to your staff. So really, you get a training support program that's really specific to your school's individual needs. So how do we do that? Well, when we think about impact, what I like to think about here is the needs and challenges that you're seeing in school, that the SEMH needs of the kids over the last few years has gone up and up and up and up. And that is what lots of the schools that we work with report. Oh, I started this job 17, 18 years ago. You could almost go into a classroom where a child was presenting some challenging or difficult behavior. You could almost recommend a happy face chart. Now the kids are so complex. And what's happened is as the complexity of the needs of the kids walking through our gates has gone up, sort of the skill level of our staff has had to increase to meet those needs and challenges. And the gap between where your teachers are now in terms of their skills, in terms of meeting the SEMH need, and where your kids actually are, that gap in the middle there is kind of like what Behaviour 360 gives you to get your teachers and your teaching staff from here to here. And I should say, what I'm going to be focusing on today is how we implement B360 with your teaching staff. So I'm not going to look at successful supervisors. I'm not going to look at the parent stuff. I'm going to be focusing predominantly on your teachers. So what is the LEAD framework? I've got a PowerPoint here with a single slide on it. The LEAD formula, or the LEAD framework as we call it, is the process to follow to make sure that everything you do with Behaviour 360 is impactful. It actually makes a difference in the classrooms, for your teachers, for your kids, because that's where it actually makes a difference. Split into 4 sections. L stands for list skills gaps, and I'm going to give you a framework for doing that in a moment. E is equipping staff. A is accountability and alignment, how we align practice in your school. And then if we do LEA, then D over time means we deliver results. So let's start with the first section, which is L for listing skills gaps. So I am just going to very quickly share a document with you. I'll put it on screen first, and then I'll actually, no, what I'll do is I will make it available to Oops. Where's it gone? Well, I'll make it available to download, and then what I'll do is I'll share my screen. So if you want to grab a copy of this, it should now have appeared in your window. It'll be available on Behaviour 360 as well when we upload this. There we go. So I think everyone's downloaded it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to then share my screen, because I'm going to show you what one looks like filled in and sort of the process that I went through to do that. Share screen. And what I am looking for is not that one. So I've got a million documents open over here. Okay then. So this is the Lee framework needs analysis. So this is where we're going to think about what are the challenges and what are the skills gaps that we see. And I like to split this into 3 separate sections to make sure you get value. The first section here on the left-hand side is all about what current difficulties or needs or support do individual members of staff have in my school right now, or are there pockets of needs? So let me give you an example. Here, I put teacher A is having difficulties with lots of low-level behavior in their classroom. And you can think about this as you write this. You can think about this is the problem that the person is experiencing, or you can think about this is the information they need. So you could write teacher A needs more proactive strategies around tackling low-level behavior. So you could write it, as a solution or a problem. So I'm going to think about the staff that come to me. I'm going to think about when I'm doing learning walks or when I've been doing observations in classrooms, where are their kind of individual needs? And this could be just 2 or 3 teachers, or it could be, more teachers than that. It kind of depends what the issues are in your school. And it depends on the size of your school, obviously, as well. So I'm going to think about the needs of individual teachers. So I might have teacher A. Teacher B here I've written is going to have to teach a looked after pupil for the first time and needs help communicating with parents. So again, this is a specific need around an individual member of staff. And then I'm going to think about where do we have small pockets of need in the school. So I've written here, we've got 3 classes where there are high needs pupils, particularly around ADHD. So I'm thinking about what can I do to improve the knowledge of that small group of staff. So it might be 3 staff, or it might be 4 or 5 staff, if you include support staff, who are working in those classrooms. And I'm thinking very specifically about pockets of need. So individuals and pockets of need. And that is the individual and small group needs section. Now, you can do that by going out and having a big consultation with your staff. You could do surveys or whatever, or you could just use your kind of professional knowledge, your experience of being in the school. You can probably fill that out pretty quickly. Not lots of detail here, short, sharp information about gap analysis. The next category I'm going to look at is whole school needs. So I'm going to be thinking about where do I want to take the school kind of strategically in the future? Where can practice across the board be improved? Or are there areas in school right now, particularly around SEMH challenges, where actually I need the whole school skilling up or raising awareness of a certain issue? So I'll put here as an example, I want to have a more restorative approach to managing behaviour across the classes. I want to take a more needs-led approach to supporting kids with SEMH needs. So encouraging my staff to think more about the underlying causes rather than the behaviours they're seeing in the classroom. Other examples here might be perhaps you're seeing a lot of children with, I don't know, a PDA, and you need to raise awareness of that. Perhaps you've got an issue with parents who are coming in and perhaps they're being aggressive, or perhaps they're not communicating, as we would like them to on the school playground, in a workplace. And our staff are feeling a bit disempowered. They're feeling challenged emotionally by that. Well, perhaps we need to think about, we have a whole school approach to what happens in those situations. Most parents who come in, absolutely fine. But, if we've got a couple of, a rising number of parents who are a bit more, confrontational on the playground, then we need a formula for doing that. So it might be that we train all our staff in this approach. So those whole school needs are all about where is there a general need, or where do I want to raise awareness, or where do I want to take the school in kind of a strategic direction. The last area I'd encourage you to think about, and this is something that often gets missed out, is future staff. The people that would join our staff in the future, the people that are going to join the team. We spend a lot of time thinking about training and supporting our staff who are with us right now. But the truth is we have staff turnover, and actually staff turnover can be a really positive thing. It means we've trained our staff to have greater skills and experiences, and now they're looking for more senior positions. They've grown and it's time for them to move on. But when staff leave, what that does mean is they take those skills and knowledge with them. And what we're left behind is a skills gap in our team, because as people come in, they're not going to have the benefit of the training that's gone in the past. And this is really where Behaviour 360 comes into its own. But if we think now about, let's imagine we're going to have 3 new members of staff joining in September, or 10 new members of staff joining in September. What are the key beats? What are the key pieces of information that I want them to know about how we manage SEMH and behaviour in school, so that when they join us, we can have an induction program through Behaviour 360 that then gets them up to speed and ensures we maintain that consistency across the whole school. So over time, we don't have this kind of situation where we train a lot of staff on, let's say restorative practice. And then as some staff leave, that knowledge gap grows. And in 3 or 4 years' time, with natural staff turnover, you're thinking, did we even do that training at all? So this is about thinking about induction, sustainability, long-term impact. So here in this column, we're going to write down what it is that we want new staff to know. And I've just put 2 ideas down here: using a restorative approach to manage behaviour, which fits with the current push that I'm going to have this year, and being proactive and forming good relationships with the kids. So when they walk through the door in September, they're actively recognizing good behavior, making those relationships and setting themselves up for success across the year. So I'm going to fill out one of these needs analysis forms. So I'm just going to stop sharing that for a minute. So that's us listing skills gaps. The next part of the framework is equipping staff. So we've identified the staff have gaps in their knowledge, or they need support. They're facing new challenges, which they need information to overcome. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to provide them with the information to overcome those challenges. And I'm going to give you a couple of ways of doing this. I'm just going to go into, and I'm going to share my screen again. Just going to share a different part of my screen. Here we go. This is the Behaviour 360 dashboard. This is what you see when you first log in. And you'll find here, up here on the top left, a search bar, which will search every single part of Behaviour 360. So this is the old-fashioned, this is the simplest way of doing things. And what I can do then is I can start to think about I'm going to write a training plan. And I'm going to show you a training plan in a moment, a framework for putting this information on. But in my lead framework, I identified that teacher A is having lots of difficulties with low-level behavior. So I'm just going to type low-level into the search bar. And what Behaviour 360 will do is it's going to give you, it searches the titles, it searches the descriptions, and it also searches the subtitle files that go with every video. So it's going to find anywhere where low-level disruption is mentioned. It's going to give you a prioritized list of training resources, which you can then insert on your plan. So you can see we've done a search and it's immediately said how to minimize low-level disruption, how to reset behavior with tricky classes. There's a behavior tactics episode about where low-level behavior is a significant issue in class. Another behavior tactics episode, also some stuff in there from successful supervisors, and another resource at the bottom. So what I could do now is I could write down the name of 2 or 3 of those suggestions and put that in my plan, which I'm going to show you in a moment. Another way, and then what I would do is I'd look at, I'm interested in a restorative approach to managing behavior. So I can now go back. I'm just going to go back to here. I'm just going to type restorative. I'm going to do a search. And now I've got a training resource on how to structure a restorative conversation. Restorative practice is mentioned in trauma and the FASD units. also about motivating students intrinsically. So I've got a selection of options there. I mean, the obvious one to go with is how to structure a restorative conversation, and that would form the backbone. So maybe I'm going to train everybody on that resource. So what I can do is I can go through my needs, I can put them in the search bar, and I can find lots of units and training resources that will support. And what I can also do, and this is brand new and this is under development, if you go into the Getting Started with Behaviour 360 section, there's a new option here called the Behaviour Bot. And it's a way of speaking using AI to find the most relevant training resources in Behaviour 360. And what Behaviour Bot will actually do is it will help you write that plan. You're going to tell it what support I need with individual and small groups, what whole school training I'm after, and you can ask it, you can tell it what I want my future staff to learn, and Behaviour Bot will go away and do the hard work. It knows about lots of the resources in Behaviour 360. I am going to say in advance, right, the conversations here are recorded. What we do is we go in periodically and we look at what people have asked and we look at the responses Behaviour Bot has given it. And then we'll say like, oh no, you missed a unit out there. What you should have said was, or this would have been a better unit. So we're training Behaviour Bot over time. So there's a safeguarding implication there. So you should not be using in Behaviour Bot the names of individual kids, the names of individual members of staff. You want to kind of anonymize it a little bit. Because it's important we safeguard everybody's identity and it is being recorded. So you'll see here when you open Behaviour Bot, it says, hi, to get started, click on one of the starter options below. And I'm going to start with clicking on, I want to write a Behaviour 360 action plan. And he's having a think for a moment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my lead framework, you know, the needs analysis where I've just written down the individual and small group needs. I'm literally just going to paste what I wrote. Teacher A is having difficulty with lots of low-level behavior, teacher B. So I'm literally copying and pasting from the lead gap analysis that I've just written. I'm just going to paste it in there, and then he's going to go away and have a think for a moment. He's going to ask me about what whole school needs I'm looking for. So you can see this maps directly onto the work we've just done in the lead gap analysis, and I'm going to paste it in my whole school needs. And then he has to think for a minute. And then I am going, now it's asking me what I'd like new members of staff to be trained on. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And then he's going to go away and have a quick think. So you can see here is giving ideas and suggestions. So we've got the high needs classes here. He's talking about where we have a high needs class looking at ADHD, calm and refocus, proactive strategies for managing ADHD in the classroom. Other techniques for managing sensory and emotional regulation, often relevant for ADHD. Whole school training, I wanted to push on restorative conversations. So it's talking about the restorative conversation here. And it's also, we asked it to take a more needs-led approach. So it's talking about advising us to look at supporting children with sensory needs. And future staff here, we've got how to structure a restorative conversation for future staff and building positive relationships with students. It tells us not only what the unit is, but where to find it. So what are we going to do with that information? So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to go back over here. I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to share another document with you because now we've identified the gaps. What we need is a plan to move forwards. So I'm going to share with you a planning document which you can download, and then I'll show you one live. Just give me one moment. We call this the success path document. So I'm just going to give you a second to download that. So what the success path document is a training plan. So we're now moving to the next phase. We've identified the gaps and we're going to think about, right, how do we equip our staff with the knowledge that they need to support the kids? So let me go into... let me just grab that. So I've got a million windows open. I'm going to share my new screen. So So the next thing we're going to fill out, and this is sort of our plan for the year, is we've got a success path planner. And what we're going to do is we're going to write down, we're going to break the training up across the year. We're going to think about, okay, this is the support here. We're going to give our individuals and those working in small groups, what units do we want them to think about? When am I going to use the whole school training modules to have my strategic push on restorative conversations? And then here, thinking about future staff. So I'm now going to go back to the information from the search bar or what Behaviour 360 gave me. So one of the units, so we've got teacher A, their focus is going to be what was the name of the unit? It was how to manage low-level disruption. That's what they're going to focus on in Spring A. And there might be, maybe we'll give them 2 units in Spring A. So let's have a look at what else there was. We also recommended Behaviour Tactics episode 47. So what I'm doing is I'm flipping in and out the windows and I'm literally just copying and pasting. So we now got a training plan for teacher A, and then I'd go for my group of classes with SEMH with ADHD needs, and then I'm just literally going to write it was ADHD calm and refocused. So I'm literally just going to copy that. I'm going to paste it inside there. So what I'm doing is very, very quickly, within minutes, you can do this in like literally 5 minutes. You can fill out a training plan. I think, right, what do they need in spring? What do they need in summer? And I'm spreading it across the year so as not to overload people. And then what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to front load key resources and training resources at the top, and then kind of like think about maintenance through spring and summer. Then I'm going to do the same thing with whole school training. So with whole school training, we're currently in spring. So maybe in the summer, what I'm going to do is I am going to do bring everyone together to do training on how to structure a restorative conversation. You know your staff, you know the way your year is set out. If I do how to structure a restorative conversation in the summer, that means we're ready to go in the autumn next year. But as future staff come in, I want them to do that straight away. Oops. There we go, that's neater. So I'm just going to fill out a success path planner throughout the year, think about individuals and small groups, whole school training, and future staff induction. So then what we've got is like a systematic plan for how we're going to move our staff from where they are now to where I want them to be. So we've listed the gaps, we've equipped our staff. What we're now going to do, coming back to the lead framework, is look at accountability and alignment. And this, I can't say it too much. This is so important. Training without accountability is just light entertainment for teachers. There has to be alignment and accountability. So let's think about a couple of situations. I want to give you a real world situation, actually. And this is where real world and virtual training often falls down. Let's imagine I'm going to give you a real example, actually. I was in a school and they were having difficulties with some child in reception. And the SENCO rang me up and she said the EP had been in 6 weeks ago, advised us to do some emotion coaching with the child, and it's not making any difference. Can you come and look and see what you think? So, emotion coaching, that's all good. That's a kind of a evidence-based approach to supporting kids to develop their skills to manage their emotions. And I got there and the teachers, they were lovely people, genuinely doing their best to support the child. But I don't know what they were doing. It was nothing like any emotion coaching I'd seen. And I spoke to the SENCO and she got really frustrated because she was like, 2 years ago, I trained everybody on this. But the truth is, in those 2 years, they'd had training on emotion coaching. And at the time, it wasn't relevant to them and the children they were teaching. Then they'd had training on EpiPens, and then they'd had training on the Ofsted framework, and then they'd had training on the new math scheme, and then they had training on phonics, right? Teachers are just bombarded by information all the time, and I call it the whirlwind. So by the time they actually needed that information, they're human beings. They just couldn't retain it, and they were doing their best to hold on to little bits of that information and do their best, to implement what they could remember. But actually, and this is something to write down, we need reminders as much as we need training. So part of aligning practice is if we go in, and what we need to do is we need to systematically check that strategies are being used. And if we see they're not being used, then we need to say to our staff, you need to go back to the unit and get the reminders that you need, because this practice isn't quite like the practice that it talks about in the units. So there's a systematic part there. And I'm going to show you one more document that's really, really useful. Again, this comes back to we don't want light entertainment for teachers. What we want is something that's going to make a difference to our kids. So I'm going to put that document up there so you can download it. I'll give you a second. It's a reflective practice log, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. But essentially what we're doing, say we look at our plan, and we've got our teachers who are supporting kids with higher ADHD needs. We say to them, right, go away and watch the video, and then I want you to fill out this reflective practice log. And I'll just put a copy of what that looks like on screen now so we can all look at it together. Here we go. So this is the reflective practice log. It's super simple. On the left-hand side, they write down the module that they watched, ADHD, Calm and Refocused. And then we're going to ask them to write down, what did you learn that was useful? And what are you actually going to do in the classroom? So we get the teachers or the teaching staff to actually list the strategies they say they're going to use. And then part of our aligning practice is, once we've given that information and perhaps given the reminder, we go down to the classroom and we say, look, you said this is what you identified you was going to change in the classroom. Now I'm going to hold you accountable for that. And sometimes that looks like a reminder, and sometimes that might look like a more difficult conversation about, this is the practice we expect in school. But without that accountability piece, what people tend to do with any form of training is they will watch it and then over time they forget it if they're not implementing immediately. So the reflective practice log and the accountability are key planks of making sure Behaviour 360 has impact in your school. So we've listed the skills gaps on the lead analysis. We've written a success path plan to equip our staff with the knowledge they need. Then we have to do the hard bit, accountability and alignment. Accountability is systematic. It's someone physically going into classrooms and seeing that strategies are being put in place, and then giving reminders and potentially having those conversations with staff about what expectations are, getting the staff to fill in the reflective practice logs so they're thinking about the content as it applies to their children, what they think is going to be the strategies that will make the difference for them. And then over time, if we follow that process, what will happen is we will deliver results. And what do I mean by results? What I mean is teachers having the knowledge they need to fill that gap between where they are and where the children's SEMH needs are. Implementing strategies in classrooms, because it doesn't make a difference if a strategy is written down in a folder or a video. If someone isn't doing it, then it won't make a difference. That accountability piece makes sure that happens, and then we see changes in the classroom. We see children that are more regulated, classes that are more focused, and teachers that feel more empowered. They're not victims anymore. They can get the information they need to support the kids in their care. So that is the process that we recommend that you use when you're using Behaviour 360. Gaps, equip, align, and then to sort of make sure those processes are running, and then you'll start to deliver results. That's the end of this webinar. If you've got any questions, I will stay on there. I'll stay on the line, so you can ask me. You can either type in the chat box, or you can put your hand up using the console on the side, and you can come on screen and talk. I hope you found that useful, and I hope that really gives you sort of a systematic way of getting value from Behaviour 360. Again, what you don't want to do is just have this facility and just say to the staff, here's a login, go and get on with it, because what will happen is staff have a million logins and use varies. Some staff will love it, but it won't have the impact, the whole school impact that it can have in your school and with your kids.